Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Ladd and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to episode 225 of the Health Oddity podcast. Now, if you are listening on the day of release, it is the 20th of December. So this is our Christmas special, our Christmas edition. If you're watching on YouTube or you're seeing any photos, you'll see that I am dressed very festively. I've got a lovely jumper on. I've got my Father Christmas hat on. He looks like he's dressed for winter. Certainly, he's got his woolly hat on and his hoodie. But I think
it's red.
And it's red. It's a red hoodie he's wearing. Yeah.
Yes. Well, what do you want? This is how I dress for Christmas.
Okay. Well, this isn't how I choose to dress. I'm not like this all the time.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So you see, I'm being authentic and you're being false.
Well, no, I'm being festive. I mean, I would wear this. I wouldn't normally wear a Father Christmas hat, but but I am wearing this. I don't know how long it will last for. Probably quite a while because it's quite cold today. So I'm quite liking being dressed up nice and festively.
Whereas I actually do wear this around the house as well because it's freezing in here.
Okay, are you gonna pop a festive background on?
Yes, right. Honestly,
right.
Let me set this up for you. This is possibly the Christmassiest background you will ever see.
So this is a special Zoom background, is it?
So prepare. It's a one I prepared earlier.
Okay.
Gosh.
Oh,
that is about as Christmassy as it gets, right?
Yeah, I'll let you off.
We've got Hans Gruber.
Yeah.
Like falling from the Nakatomi
Plaza. Yeah.
Right.
I'll take a photo of this.
We've got Murtaugh and Riggs. Right, because Lethal Weapon is a Christmas film. Because Jingle Bell Rocks is
it is a Christmas film. Yeah.
The little-known First Blood. There's a Christmas tree in the background. Look, and he's wearing a Santa hat.
It is a Christmas movie. Yeah.
It is a Christmas movie, and then obviously the happiest Christmas film you've ever seen in the last 30 seconds of it, but the rest of it is like really depressing. Is It's a Wonderful Life? So,
If with that background, you do actually you've redeemed yourself. You have redeemed yourself with that background. I have to say that's very good. Excellent. So yes, as we said, it's the 20th of December, 2024. Pete and I are talking today about all things training, all things Christmas, what we've learned over the last few guest episodes, and potentially as well, we're going to talk about what our focuses will be for 2025, and we'd really encourage you, the listeners, the watchers, to maybe start having a think about this now, if you haven't already been thinking about it, because we know what it's like. We have just set at my gym at Unique Results, we've just put some dates in place for a program that we're going to be starting kind of mid-January. And we kind of get that in the diary early because we know what tends to happen with the majority of people is they have Christmas, they have New Year, and then the kids go back to school. And it takes probably the first 2 weeks of January for anyone who isn't already prepared and hasn't already thought about it. It takes the first couple of weeks in January just for people to get back into a routine. And sometimes it can be a couple of weeks to get going. And then for quite a few people, I would imagine, it takes them a couple of weeks to get going, and then by the end of January, they've kind of given up already. So we really try to get focused now for what we are going to want our intention to be for 2025 in terms of our health, our fitness, our business, the way we want our lives to be, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I do love Pete's background. That is superb. Yeah, Hans Gruber, Lethal Weapon, Rambo First Blood, and It's a Wonderful Life. So yes, so Pete, I mean, we've had the last couple of episodes have been really, really good. I've really enjoyed last week talking with Sitting Bull UK, David Walsh. Was a really inspiring episode, and I've talked to a number of people about that, and people have talked to me about it as well, about kind of it's a cliche that gets thrown around, and I don't usually actually like the way it's used. You see on social media, you'll see some guy with no legs or someone who's had a terrible accident, and then it will kind of show them training. It will say, well, what's your excuse? And I think we may have mentioned this before, and it can be kind of quite like shaming people into exercise or trying to make people feel bad if they're not doing things. But I did show a few people like a little highlight reel that's on David's Instagram, and they said, when you see someone like him who was able-bodied, and then got diagnosed with MS, like not quite late in life, but in his 20s, in his mid to late 20s, I think it was. Well, actually, it was 10 years ago. So he's 38 now. So he would have been 28 when he got diagnosed. Already had kids and that sort of thing. And then went from being an able-bodied man with children, married, to now, using a wheelchair. When people watch that, I mean, it's not something I would shove down their throats and say, well, look at this guy, look at what he does. But people do actually say, Christ, you see someone like that doing the things that they're doing, and you do think, Christ, what have I got to moan about? Or why can't I, just do my exercise and take actually the health that you have as a gift and a privilege, and be grateful for it, and then train accordingly. I mean, what are your views about the last couple of guests that we've had on? I mean, both of them in different ways, Helen Hall and David, have sparked conversations for me personally with my members at the gym. I mean, yeah. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, for me, I mean, what you've just been talking about there, that's not necessarily just, I mean, you can go in any direction with that. Like someone who was able-bodied and then aren't anymore, and it's not being able, it's like adaptive. Or someone who's born that way, is it easier for them? But then you can talk about that with single parents. You can talk about it with anything, right? Because single parents who maybe haven't got the support around them because they've split up or someone's died or whatever, it's like, how do you deal with that? I know single parents who work solidly and have like, time and stuff like that to themselves as well. And they seem to manage it all really well. And then I know couples with kids who seem to be manic and all over the place. You know what I mean? So it's like, it all depends where you come from. It all depends how you were brought up. It all depends what your head's like, what your headspace is like. Because David mentioned the mental side. So maybe it didn't affect him more mentally than physically, obviously, but there's a not a hierarchy. There's a balance to be had there, isn't there? So, I mean, those sorts of things, you can just look at one example and go, well, this guy did that. And it's like, yeah, well, lots of people have done things that you'll never be able to do. And it's not because you can't do them. It's because they'll never come into your radar or whatever, So there's lots of ways of thinking about it. So for me, I just look at people like that and I think, I was talking about this the other week about inspiration as well. And people say like, this person is so inspiring. So like David's an inspiring person, right? But you can say that, and it's like, well, in what way? Because what has it made you do? Because you can inspire someone to feel a certain way, and that's all good. But then for me, inspiration then comes through the actions you take out of what you've seen, and how are you going to use that as an example for yourself to do something, to take action. And it's like the self-help books, isn't it? We've said it before. People read them and then shelf-help them, right? And put them on the shelf. It's the same with this. It's like
elf help.
Hey!
Very sorry.
elf on the shelf help.
Elf on the shelf help. Yeah.
But yeah, you can read the books and put them on the shelf and then go, well, that was a good book. Or you can take action on it, right? And it's like the same with this. You can see the videos and go, wow, that is amazing, and then just carry on what you're doing, or like use it to spur you on to do something else. It's like people who get cancer and then decide to do marathons and all that sort of stuff. And, and some of them do it until they can't anymore, or they do it and then beat the thing as well. You know what I mean? So it's like, it can go in many different ways. But for me these days, it's just like, it's just make a difference. What does it look like in 20 years? All of this sort of stuff. Make it in the Dan John thing of make a difference today, make a difference tomorrow, every day. So, that's what I think of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to have those conversations with people who come up to me and say, "Oh, I listened to the David episode, and it made me feel this," and then they will have the conversation. But I'm not someone who, like I say, you see on social media this, look at this person doing this, and it's very often, like I say, someone with no legs, or someone with doing something extreme, and like you said, could be seen as highly inspiring, but something just an epic kind of thing. And then someone will say, well, what's your excuse? And I'd never be someone to kind of use that, because like you say, everybody's life is totally different and everybody's motivation is totally different, and that is kind of like I'd see that as, they say, I'm not one of these people who say, oh, you've got to tiptoe around everybody, and you mustn't try and upset anybody, and you've got to be so careful with what you say. But I just think that it's not particularly helpful most of the time to say that when someone is maybe struggling to get started, they're struggling for the motivation, they may be for whatever reason, they're not I suppose living a healthy life. They're not
Yeah.
possibly taking the action. And like you say, I think with a lot of things, you see these even documentaries and things that you watch, you might say, oh, it's a really inspiring documentary. But like you say, we've had conversations before, and I think I wrote blogs years ago around how inspiration is like the spark that maybe can lead to light a fire, but it's only the initial spark. And like you say, if you don't do anything with the inspiration, or if the inspiration is, like, to use a similar analogy, just a flash in the pan, and doesn't lead to any long-term change, then like you say, it just makes you feel positive or makes you feel good in the short term, but doesn't actually change anything.
I've just had something pop into my head there about lighting a spark, right? So you can use firelighters to light your fire,
Mm.
right? And it lights straight away, and that's fine. Or you can use kindling, and it takes a bit longer, but it probably builds a better fire, right?
Mm. Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
and you learn something by doing that as well. You learn how to build a fire. So if you're in the middle of nowhere and you need to build a fire, and you've got some
Mm.
flint and all that, you could probably build one. Whereas if you always use firelighters, you'll be like in a one of the, like a you squirt it with lighter fluid,
Yeah,
mortars
lighter
and
fluid.
stuff.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's that's fine, but it doesn't help you in the future if you're in the middle of nowhere. So
I think
anyway,
yes, yeah. A lot of these things though, they're similar themes that we've talked about many times. But the quick fix, or the wanting the quick result, or the quick the quick inspiration, but the things that where the things that actually stick, or the quick weight losses. We spoke when
mm,
we had Steve Bush on recently, and he spoke about the weight loss surgery 5 years ago when he had it, or the kind of Ozempic and the weight loss drugs at the moment, which we actually, in that conversation, we said he doesn't see them, they're not bad things, but they are a tool to kind of get the ball rolling, and they're a tool to kind of start moving you in the right direction. But you need to foster and develop long-term habits and strategies that are going to keep, again, to go back to the analogy, they're going to keep the fire burning for longer. They're going to
mm.
they're going to keep restocking that fire and keep moving. Because I find I've been having lots of conversations regarding Helen Hall's podcast as well a few weeks ago, which was all around the kind of the menopause, and yes, HRT, but also doing everything that you can do with lifestyle and things to give yourself the best likelihood of success, and the things that are also going to complement the kind of medical strategies that you might be using as well. And all of it comes down to, I suppose, again, the HRT is not, it's not a magic pill or a magic wand to solve everything, just like the weight loss surgery or the Ozempic isn't a magic wand to solve everything. It's something that's going to help, certainly, but we have so much power outside of the medical interventions that we need to tap into ourselves. So it's kind of like lifestyle. I'd see medicine complements lifestyle, but it's not the be all and the end all. Whereas I think a lot of people nowadays maybe see it as that. I don't know. What do you think? Yeah, I can see you thinking,
Well,
talking there.
things like them on the magic bullet. They're
Hmm.
the thing that spark they're the spark. They're the things that start it off. Because there's a guy I was talking to a guy. It's funny. It's the guy who used to cut my hair. Now this is bad because I haven't had my hair cut for ages, which is why I'm wearing this hat. He used to cut my hair, right? And then I started going to a place next door because it's like the guy's got a bit of a better not a better, but he's got a bit of an ethos about his business, about mental health and that. So I thought I'd go and have a chat with him. And then now he cuts my hair when I get it cut.
And he's next door to the other guy, is he?
He's like upstairs next door, right? The problem is, I don't see the guy who used to cut my hair anymore. I mean, I don't know him that well, but like you just have a chat when you go. And I was going there for a few years. But the pub I go to, the Star, he works behind the bar in there as well. So I walk in, I've had my hair cut, and I'm like, oh, hello, how are you doing? But anyway, he had a gastric band fitted years ago. He told us about it. But we were talking about it the other night because of Steve's podcast. And I said about like this guy who I know who had half his stomach cut out, but then had to change his lifestyle, and he had all the dietitians and consultants, and he did what they told him, and guess what? It worked. And this guy had said, he had it done on the NHS, I think, and he said, not that like means that much difference, but he was basically like, no, just do the surgery, and I don't want to change my lifestyle at all. And it's like, and he's lost a lot of weight. I mean, he's lost loads, but it's still like, okay, and that's fine. I mean, if that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. But for me, how I would look at that, if that was me, knowing what I know now and who I am now, I'd be like, right, I'm going to change everything. And I'd probably, even like where I am now, I'd change my lifestyle first and see if that worked. And then, get whatever you need. But it doesn't matter which way around you do it. You need a lifestyle change either way.
And it's interesting because that's what Steve said, wasn't it? He said that when you get it done, potentially, I mean, again, I don't know, we're just talking from what Steve said, but when you get it done on the NHS, you don't, and you can understand, you don't get the same degree of follow-up and care afterwards that you do when you have it done privately. Because I think he said when you have it done privately, you then get assigned like a dietitian for the next 12 months, and you get so many repeat appointments with the consultant and checkups and things, and you're monitored more closely afterwards, which makes sense, because the resources are tight with the NHS and you've paid more to have it done privately and all that care. But it's that kind of ongoing coaching, really, and accountability, which will then lead to a more you would imagine a better outcome long term, rather than just have it done and and out the door.
It's funny because accountability, I know you get external accountability in internal, intrinsic,
intrinsic and
extrinsic accountability and stuff. But I think it's all like I mean I'm no expert on all of that, but I think for me it's all intrinsic anyway. Because one of my online clients, who you've met, he couldn't work with me for like 6 months or something, and then he came back and he was like, oh, I've put on 10 kilos and I've been like a bit easy on myself, training and all that. So we got back into training. I was like, do you need any help with the nutrition? And he was like, no, I've done it before, so I'll work on that myself. And then after a few months, he was like, do you know what? I'm going to need a hand with that actually, because I'm not I'm not doing anything about it. So I basically just said, right, let's start by seeing what you're having. So just record everything in MyFitnessPal and send me it every day. Just don't even try and change anything, just record it. And I haven't had to do anything. All he does is send me that every day, and it's good. And I'm like, right, if you're telling the truth on that, it's fine. And he's lost weight, he's lost kilos, he's put on muscle. And he was like, he was kind of saying, what did he say? I can't remember any, but I said to him once, I said, I haven't had to do anything there because I'm going to look at it. And he was like, do you want me to keep sending them to you? I was like, yes, because if you stop, then you'll give yourself an out. But if you've got to send it to me, it doesn't matter if I do anything with it or not because it's been bang on. And that was it. It was like the odd weekend and that he'd be like, oh, I had loads and I've monitored it, but I wasn't sure whether I should send it because I've had more. And I'm like, it doesn't matter because the very fact that you have, there was one weekend he didn't monitor it. And I was like, well, next time that happens, just monitor it just to see, because it might surprise you how much or how little you are having. And I think it surprised him how much. And he's like, blimey, so I need to pare back on that. You know, so it's just, that's the accountability. Just because I'm looking at it, I still don't have to do anything because he does it all himself, you know.
And it's totally, it is that, like we've used the quote many times on the podcast over the last 225 episodes, but you know, what gets measured gets managed, you know, just the act of being aware of something and tracking something leads to like a 10% improvement just by doing that. You know what I mean? It's like, even if you don't consciously change anything. Yeah, go on.
With Christmas coming up, right? You know, that's what people say, don't they? They're like, well, you know, don't let Christmas ruin it all for you. It's like, no, let it ruin it all for you, because you got to have some fun, right? So it's like, just don't do it like for Christmas, New Year, all the way through January, and then go, oh, by the way, I need to do something about this. You know, it's like that's, we've probably said it on the last, like a year ago, like it's not what happens between Christmas and New Year, it's what happens between New Year and, but anyway.
No, totally. People need to keep that in, you know, exactly. That is the most important time, obviously, you know. The other 300 and, you know, whatever it is, how many days, 365 days a year, so it's probably like 350 days a year, you know. The other 300, rather than the 15 that maybe are covered on that Christmas period, you know.
Exactly.
I mean, I think what's important as well, like we've spoken about this before, and everybody well, I say everybody knows, but I do not worry about, you know, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, you know, a couple of days here and there over that period. But there is a tendency from, I'm sure, probably the everyday people, and not maybe people who are listening to this podcast, but maybe family and friends of people who are listening to this podcast, where the Christmas festive season, and maybe even people who are American listening to the podcast, who kind of have this holiday season, which starts with Thanksgiving, and then I think it just rolls right through December into Christmas and into New Year, and it's almost like a full month of you know, kind of festivities and parties and whatnot. So I think you do have to, I mean, for me personally anyway, I have to have a degree of damage limitation, because if I just, as we've used the analogies before about having the levers that you can turn on and turn off, if it's, or who was it? I think it might have been Gemma Wesson, I'm going back a while, who had the traffic light system. You know, green is basically just the floodgates are open, anything goes, as much as I want goes, I'm not worried about anything. Amber is you are you know, using a degree of caution and awareness around things, and red is that you are maybe in a harder period of strictness, adherence, dieting, whatever. And I think the problem is with some people who will just say, right, the floodgates are open for the next 4 weeks. You can do a hell of a lot of damage in 4 weeks if you really just want to. Just want to, you know, just want to say, right, I'm out. Because, you know, most people have, you know, work parties. They may have 2 or 3 different work parties, you know, department, the big one, you know, a smaller group. They've maybe got other functions and parties going on, drinks, all the rest of it. And before you know it, you can feel pretty terrible afterwards. And I don't think, I can't remember who I heard about who talk about this, but how it's actually no surprise that the so-called sort of flu season, if you like, comes in January, straight after the month of poisoning yourself season. You know, you know, people who go overboard on alcohol and sugar and all sorts, and then in January they feel terrible, or they maybe do what's the dry January, isn't it? Is what people do nowadays. You know.
I think I worked it out once. If you do dry January every January for 10 years, because people aren't going to do it forever.
No.
Some people do, they give up alcohol and stuff like that. But if you're going to do dry January, every January for 10 years, and you live till you're 80 years old, it's like, I can't even remember what percentage of your life it is, but it's not very much. It's very, very, very minimal. It's like 0.01 or something.
Yeah, dearie me. But in terms of training and things, I mean, I was gonna say I'd have to give a shout out as well to I've been doing a lot of this sandbag training recently, last few weeks. And John Gibb, who we had on a few weeks back, so this is episode 225, 220, Highland Wolf Strength. We talked quite a lot about sandbags and stuff with him. And this is what I love, because I think when we recorded it, I said, I'm going to ask you a few questions about sandbags, and we might lose a few people here because we're going to get a bit technical. But it really...
Hang on. Just after that, you started talking about Captains of Crush. I think you would have lost everyone else. I nearly switched off after that.
Yeah, dearie me. But no, the sandbag advice I got from John has really helped. Really helped me with some stuff that I've been working on, which is good. You mentioned, I just wanted to touch on this because this is something I think that could be good for the listeners as well, because you mentioned something just before we started recording about how you've got a lot on at the moment, work-wise, a lot of stuff occupying your headspace, if you like, or your, I believe the kind of the, what's it, management consultancy coaching for a term might be occupying a lot of bandwidth, for you at the moment.
Oh God, you're gonna make me
so yeah. So what's going on with your training? Because you mentioned something about your pressing, where I think this might be useful because it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's a Monday when we're recording this, and I train 3 days a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday is like basically the volume goes up during the week. Monday is lowest volume day, then Wednesday and Friday go up a bit, and it does that each week basically based on what Paul's given me. And the volume's quite high at the moment as well, and it's quite heavy for me. I'm getting to the top. I'm doing presses with a 34 kilo, right? And every time I've got to about a 32 kilo for presses, I've got a certain way through the program and had to stop and then go back and come back again. So now I've gone up the next, like another 2 kilos on that. So it's all quite heavy at the moment. And I've had a couple of weeks where I'm like, can I repeat the presses? And then it's fine, but my left shoulder gets a bit tight and funky. It's not sore, but I can feel it's tight, but it's still doing okay. But today I sent Paul a message and just said, look, I'm going to have a week off presses. And it's not because of anything physical. It's because a week ago today, I got in touch with a guy to help me build an app for Walk Bath. And he does it in a way, it's already set up for certain things, and he just has to plug things in and it works, right? But you work together really quite intensely over the last week we'll have. And then it got to the point of testing it. So I'm trying it out, and then it's like, oh, this doesn't work. So I have to then get back to him and he fixes it and go in and out and in and out. So it's not really scheduled work, right? So I like a scheduled day because I know what I'm doing. It's not scheduled work. And then he'd be like, can you jump on a call quickly because we just need to sort this out? And I'm like, I wouldn't usually do that, but I'm like, yes, because I want to get this out as soon as possible. So then even over the weekend, yesterday was Sunday. So Saturday we did the walk. The app wasn't ready yet, but I tested it with somebody and I found a couple of bugs in it as well. Then all day Saturday, for the rest of the day, I was until about 5 o'clock, I was working on it. And then on Sunday, I worked on it a bit in the morning, and then I was doing lots of other stuff that I do on a Sunday as well. But I got like basically right through till 9 o'clock last night, I was on it as well. And then this morning, he didn't do anything over the weekend, because he works for a living, so he works during the week. So he got back onto it this morning and then sent me a few things through. And then so while I was training, but I was like, I need to get this sorted because it's actually gone live now and it's got live data in it. So I'm like, right, we need to work on this. So I was thinking about that. And so my training goes out the window. I was trying to do presses at the same time in between, like do sets and then a bit of work and then sets. But then I was talking about this with a coach of mine the other day, and it's like, that's two different mindsets. It's two different parts of the brain. And if you're trying to flick from one to another, so it's like the thing of like, you do some like work and then like, if you go for a walk, you come back in a different frame of mind. Right. So it's like that. So I was trying to flick between those two different frame of minds, and I know it doesn't work, but I thought I'll be all right. But the presses just felt super heavy. So I just sent Paul a message and said, look, I'll do everything else. I'm not doing the presses because the other stuff's actually quite easy. Because for the last week I've been in this thing, and then for the next week I'm going to be in it as well. So it's taken up too much of my brain, and I can't, and I don't want, and I feel like I'm going to burn out. I'm not, because it's only been a week. You don't burn out after a week, but you know, and I know what I'm like, and I know what I used to be like in the corporate world. I'd get into, and that would be it. And I just couldn't get it out of my head. So I'm like, I'm not going down that route because I know better than that now. But for the time being, that is the levers. So this made me think, you know, the levers on training and all that. Sometimes you have to step it up and all that, but you have to think about it in line with everything else. So I'm kind of stepping down the training, but not ending it. And I probably need a week off anyway, just to reset. And then I'm ramping up the lever on this because it matters. And it's not like something that I'm going to work hard on forever. I work hard on it now, and it makes everything in the future easier. Do you know what I mean? So it's like building the foundation. It's building the base of the pyramid wider so the peak can go higher, but in a business sense. And it's great because actually what I've learned from training is now applying to that. And I've said that a lot in the past, but I didn't know how that worked. You don't know how it works until you do it. And until you can see where you want the peak to be, or roughly where you want it to be. It's like with training, you never know what if you're training the way we do, you never know what your max is, but you don't need to know. So I don't need to know how far walk bath's going to go or walking solids is going to go. I just know that it's going to go that way in the right direction. I don't know where the peak is.
I think why I found that so interesting and why I wanted you to explain that is because I think there's a few kind of things behind that can help everybody. First of all, recognizing that training is a stress, and sometimes training can be more or less stressful. So when it's nice and light and it's nice and kind of easy, it's not probably too much of a stress, either physically or emotionally, because you know you can do it. But when training is getting heavier and more stressful, and life is getting heavier and more stressful in whatever way, do you know what I mean? Like you say, extra busy with work and more things, then that's probably not a good time to try and, you know, if you're in a mega stressful period of, I mean, Dan John talks about this all the time, you know, if you're in a really stressful period of your life, with work or with family or with whatever, then trying to go into a stressful period of training or dieting or whatever is not going to work. So you need to know when to step back a little bit. And I think so that's really important, that people don't lump stress, because everything is stress, and all that, whether you realize or not, the more stress you kind of lump on yourself, something's going to give, you know, or at the very least you're not going to get optimal benefits from your training because you know you've got so much going on outside. But the other thing that I think is really good is that you didn't just message Paul and say, I'm not doing any training this week because I've got a lot going on outside. You just took the one element that was giving you that was the heaviest, and you're still doing I presume you're still doing your pull-ups and your pistols, but you're just shelving the presses for this week. So it's kind of like, you don't have to say you're not going to do any training. You can adapt what you do, or you can modify what you do, or you can reduce what you do, or you can adjust what you can do, but you don't need to stop training, which I think is really important. Which I just thought were the two things really that I thought apply to a lot of people, where they try to, like, it's, again, like you say, it's all lessons learned from training. But if you try and force progress, and you're banging your head against a wall trying to force the progress, you're not going to get it. It needs to be kind of expanding the comfort zone. It needs to be relatively comfortable. So if it's causing you physical and emotional stress, it's best not to do it. And I mean, I've done that myself. I mean, this week I did, for the first time ever, I think, in my life, I wasn't scheduled to do it. I had to do 10 sets of 8 presses each side with a 28. And they got to the last set, and I felt like I could do 10 here on each side, just on the last set. So I did 10 and 10 with the 28, and felt really good. And that's the first time I think I'm pretty sure it's the first time I've ever pressed 28 for 10 reps on each side. and it's good, and it just kind of, it just gets there, doesn't it? I mean, it's not like you say, not you're up at like working with 34 kilos now for multiple sets and things, but I can see that you still cross over. Now I think, wow, if I was to actually start pressing a third, like you say, it's like Paul says, actually, like the rising tide raises all ships, or, if you increase your any rep max, you increase your every rep max. And the fact that I can press 28 relatively comfortably for 10 reps on each side means that I could probably press 30 for more reps than I've ever pressed it, and 32 for more reps than I've ever pressed it. Do you know what I mean? So and hopefully we'll have Paul back on in the next couple of weeks talking about his book Perpetual Strength, which I'm reading at the moment. I should be finishing soon. But no, it's interesting. I mean, what are your plans for? We speak about this, I know, and people have been listening to the podcast for 4 years. I mean, well, I say people have been listening to the podcast for 4 years. We'll have only heard 4 episodes like this over the last 4 years, so it's not it's not too much. But in terms of what are your plans for Christmas? What are you doing? Are you at home? Are you going away? Are you going to be elsewhere?
If you go and listen to not last year's Christmas episode, the one before, so
Yeah.
2020.
2022. Okay,
we're doing that.
You want to refresh my memory? I can't remember. I can't remember 2 years ago. But go on.
Yeah, no, we're going to Whitley Bay. So my family
okay.
live in Newcastle.
Yeah.
And Whitley Bay is on the coast. So there's Tynemouth, Whitley Bay, Tynemouth, Cullercoats, Whitley Bay, Blythe, and then you go. That's going up north, and then you go south, and there's South Shields and further down and all that. So yeah, we're staying in Whitley Bay, which is just outside of Newcastle, so you can get the metro into Newcastle, or we can drive in or whatever. So we'll be seeing my mum and my brother and my sister-in-law for Christmas and all of that. So I'll be taking the bells with me. We're staying in an Airbnb somewhere.
I'm going to say, yeah, you'll have the bells, because this is the next question. You'll be taking the bells with you and continuing to train over that period.
Yeah. I can't do pull-ups while I'm away because I haven't got a bar, but I can do pistols and presses. Because we'll not be doing much else. We'll be taking, like, Whitley Bay is great because you can take the dog for a walk on the beach. So where we'll be staying, you can walk onto the beach and do like a mile or two. I think it's probably about a mile or two across the beach to St. Mary's Lighthouse and then come back. So we can do 4 or 5 miles. And we'll be doing a bit of wandering about and stuff. But what's great about Newcastle is you can go and watch the sunrise because it's on the East Coast. But you can do that at like 8:45 in the morning because it's like dark until then. So if you want to see a nice early sunrise, you've got to get out of bed at 8 o'clock. Which is brilliant.
That's excellent. No, but I love that. I always love it when you go, because you often obviously go on holiday in the UK because of the dog and that sort of thing. So you can take kettlebell or a pair of kettlebells, or like you've mentioned before, the kettlebells and the add-on, the magnetic weights and things to allow you to have a bit of flexibility with what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. And I mean, I think that, and some people might. I think probably more people who listen to this podcast now will be training over, the Christmas holidays and the New Year holidays and that sort of thing. Because I mean, for me personally, it's almost one of the things that Steve said on the podcast when he was on a few weeks back, when he said, I don't want to stop training because last time I stopped for 30 years. And then he came back to it. So, I mean, when it's part of your life, it's like doing this podcast, isn't it? When it's a part of your life and you do it every week, you don't want to. And you've said that before, because a few times I've messaged you and said, "Oh, we haven't got a guest this week, and we've got a few episodes in the can, as it were. Should we do one this week?" And you've said to me, "Well, let's do it because it's good just to keep that consistency and you don't want to have a week off because we're in the flow, as it were."
It's funny with that, because where that comes from is if we don't, there'll be a point in the future where it'll be like, shit, we haven't got any episodes. We need to record like 3 this week. You know what I mean? So it's better to be ahead or to keep up than catch up.
Yeah,
it just is. So it's better to have more than less.
Yeah, and there's a saying, isn't there? It's easier to stay in shape than to get in shape.
Exactly. All of those things apply. Again, it all applies to training applies to everything, and everything applies to training. It's like, it's funny because what you were talking about earlier, something else popped into my head because there's someone I know. So this goes with what I was talking about about not training much this week and doing what I need to and what have you, because I know my body, but I also know my head. And like I say, it feels like I'm going to burn out in a week, which doesn't happen, but that feeling's not good. But I know somebody who was recently diagnosed with bowel cancer and has had a keyhole operation to take it out, right? And hopefully, we don't know yet, but hopefully there's no chemo, there's no radiotherapy. It's just, that's it. Hopefully that's it done, right? 3 hours of keyhole surgery, bosh, done. And like 12 weeks recovery or something. But this person was like, does like a boot camp thing and does walking and does lots of things, very healthy, a lot of gardening, all that. And they were going to see somebody, I think, about something, and they were like, she said, "Oh, you'll find this weird." And I was like, "I won't." Like, there's loads of stuff around, like, that we've heard lots of stuff on here and what have you. But they get them to lie down, and like she moves her head like that, and then how we say you can walk one day, you can walk the next day. One day she went along, it might have been like a week later, and she really struggled to move her head. She was like, right, for something, she was lying on her front. She's like, I can't do that. And the lady who she was with said, something's going on in your lower back here. She'd had like problems with getting out of breath, bit of pain, sore back. Turned out to be bad. She, eventually, this was over the period of like 8 or 9 months. Eventually, like the end result of the doctor was like, you've got bowel cancer, we need to get rid of it. So on the NHS, 2 weeks later, bosh, done. But that's knowing your body. That's checking in and because like you say, like we've said, you go walk and the chances are you can walk tomorrow and you can walk the next day. And then if you get up and you can't walk for some reason, there's a problem. It's like they're standing on one leg for 30 seconds. If you can't do that, it could be a neurological problem. It could be anything, so there's all these things. And it's like, that's not scaremongering and saying everyone, if you can only stand on your leg for 2 seconds, you've got cancer. It's not that, but it's like, right, is there a reason why, let's figure it out. And if it's all fine, let's make it so you can. Because,
well, that was a little bit like David last week, wasn't it? Which was where he said he just started having numbness,
yeah.
And then, and you can say, I suppose, stereotypical sort of man, if you like. He had this numbness and he kind of ignored it, and it got worse, and he kind of ignored it, and it got worse, and it kind of ignored it, and it got worse till he could hardly move. And then he went to see someone, and then he got diagnosed with like MS, So I think it's that was kind of heartbreaking when I heard him talk about that, because you think that could in theory happen to anyone,
Could happen to anyone at any time, yeah.
28 years old, competing in strongman training, strong guy, just develops this numbness, and then at 28 diagnosed with MS, So I think that importance of checking in, that importance of body awareness. And I think unless you are physically aware and physically active, and we often say, or I often, most people don't know what it feels like to feel good. Most people probably feel pretty rubbish most of the time.
That sits with me really well, because I used to be that. I never felt well, but I didn't know it until later on.
Because you had nothing to measure it against, It's just like it's like we've said before, haven't we, on here? Like you've said, and I experienced as well, when people are maybe in their 40s or their 50s, and they say, oh yeah, this hurts, that hurts, I can't do this, I'm very stiff, I don't sleep well, I struggle to get out of bed in the mornings, I can't put my shoes on, but it's just part of getting older, because I'm 40 or 50,
The amount of people I've had conversations with, right? And I don't go around telling everyone, but it might come up in conversation because we're talking about training or whatever. And I'll be talking about like me doing my training consistently over 3 days a week and all this, and they'll go, yeah, but wait, you get my age, and I'm older than them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I tell them my age, and they're like, oh, right, okay, bollocks. That's not an excuse.
Not an excuse. No, it's not an excuse. Dear me. No, when I'm looking for, we talk about the Christmas and stuff, I'm always look for one of my favorite training sessions of the year is Boxing Day. I love training on Boxing Day. So I open the gym up we're not officially open, but I'll normally put a thing in the Facebook group and say, look, I'm going to open the gym tomorrow 8 till 10 a.m. 2 hours. If you want to come in and train, you can. And I love it because I haven't got any other work to do, and I'm really well fed from Christmas Day. So
what I think's great about that is the culture of your gym. People actually turn up as well.
They do.
There's a lot of places where you'd say that, you'd go around and do it and nobody would turn up because I sod that. But the culture in your gym is like, it's a good vibe there on a box. I mean, that's amazing. You had people queuing up last year, didn't you?
Yeah. I turn up and people are already waiting outside. And then I do often pop the mulled wine urn on as well, so they can train and have a mulled wine afterwards. But no, I love it. I love that because you can just get in, do some strong, and you feel strong. Everyone's in a good mood. No one's got to go to work that day. Usually on a Boxing Day, or very few people have got to go to work that day. So it feels good, to train. I know, and I enjoy that. So so it's good. So why don't we touch on like any sort of potential focus that you've got for 2025? Whether that be I know there's so much exciting stuff going on with Walk Bath. I know there's exciting stuff you're working on for your own training for things. What do you kind of see as a focus for you potentially for 2025?
I've got lots.
Yeah.
So what I've got to do is just not think about it all. So I can talk about it, but I'm not thinking about it right now because I've got the way I do stuff, and I learned this recently. And again, I've known it for ages. I just never implemented it, but I've learned it recently and I used to work out, try and think, how do I do this on a spreadsheet? Because like you can have stuff written down, but it ends up like everywhere, right? So I'm like, how can I do this on a spreadsheet? And my coach Brian helped me with this. And it's like, what I do is I have what I'm going to do this week on one sheet, and then everything else is on another sheet. I don't even look at it because I have like that, and then what I'm going to do this week that'll push me and my business and training and everything forwards. And then I've got like high yielding tasks, which is what I do anyway each week. It's just like the stuff you do every week, like train the guys at sessions, update programs on a Sunday for people, and that just happens. But this is stuff that'll push all that forwards, or push Walk Bath forwards, or whatever. And then I've got a 30, 60, 90 day plan. And anything on the 30, 60, 90 day doesn't even get looked at. It gets looked at on a Sunday when I update this week. So all I need to do is look at what I need to do this week. And the other things are in the background and they're not even there. They're away. And if something comes up that I might have to do, I'm like, I'm not looking at that until Sunday when I'm doing the plan for next week. So I've got loads of stuff that is going to happen next year, but I'm just right now I'm focusing on the app. The app will be done. And then I'm focusing on phase 2 of the app, because I went back to the guy and I was like, we need all of this. And he was like, right, okay, that's not covered in what we did. So it's just going to cost me more money as well. I was like, oh, bugger. But that, it's just what it is it's an investment in the future. Because with this, what next year, what's going to happen is hopefully it goes to the States, because I'm talking to somebody about that. And hopefully it goes around the country. So the app can let anybody in. It's so simple. You go onto the website, click the button, you can create an account, right? You don't even have to live in Bath. The walks are all in Bath. But what will happen is, as people come into that account, when I'm talking to other people in other parts of the country, I'll be like, oh, by the way, there's 100 people in the app from your town. What do you want to set something up in your area? So they'll all, it's creating demand. Like, I've asked you if you like, your guys are going to do a walk here, but I can annex that within the app and get them to come in and come and do that here. And then that's another part to it. So like tourism and all that. So, and then obviously there's a business plan above that as well for the whole of next year. So that I can't get into the details of it because again, I can't see the peak. I'm just building the base. I'm just doing the reps. And the wider the base, the more reps I do at this level with an app that serves one local area, the more reps I'll be able to do when I go to other areas or other countries. So that's where it's at. But
yes, you're creating systems, you're creating a process, you're creating the technology, the infrastructure behind it, so that then, like you say, it becomes more repeatable, more replicable,
Yep.
easier to expand upon, and all the rest of it. No, that's fantastic.
You can
And
just plug it in. You can go to
say,
another city and go plug in. There you go.
yeah,
Here's your permissions in the behind the scenes bit of the app for your area, because you can annex that. Away you go, and that's
yeah.
it.
No,
Yeah.
that's great. No, and like you say, because I think there's 16 or 18 of us now coming next year in June. So all of us will add, because then I suppose in the app, will it have like maps of the walks and stuff like that in there, or not? On like,
No. Because
no.
they're all led. So the way it
Okay.
works is, I mean, when I set it up, it's walks that way. It's like park run.
Yeah.
But park run's the same run every week, right?
Mm.
Unless you go to a different city, obviously.
Mm.
But it's the same run every week. But you don't really want to do that with walking, do you? Because it's not about the time. It's about park run is about this, but this is more about you have a chat on the walks and it's connection, right, with local area and local people. So all the walks are led. It was originally led by me. Now that people have come along and got the badges and all that sort of stuff, they're now led by the community as well, who know the walks. So what'll happen is in a new area, I'll like whoever wants to do it there, I'll be like, right, do you know any walks? And hopefully they do. And if they don't, it'd be like, well, go and find some, put some together. And then I've got a separate bit in all trails that I use where I put the walks in, and that's got the mileage and stuff like that and the routes. But the idea is people can do them if they want. But in the app, you just put the walk on. People don't need to know what the route is. They just need to know where to meet you and what time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. They meet you here. It'll be in the app where you meet. Is it here, or whatever? You meet there, and then you go for a walk.
Mm.
And it's great because getting the walk leaders, right? The walk captains, I'm calling them.
Yeah.
Getting them to do it. There's a couple of people who have said they want to do it, and I'm like, right, what walks do you know? And they're like, well, I don't know any yet. And I'm like, you've done them like 20 times. I'm like, yeah, I just talk and I never know where we are. But that's the whole point, right? That's the idea. People then it takes it out of people's heads. They don't have to think. You must have been on a walk with a family and stuff where you've got the book and you're like, oh, bloody hell, right, we've got to get here. And like, oh, it's this half left. What the bloody hell does half left mean when you're in a field, right? So
that's what normally happens on our walking weekends every year. We get lost. So because we have these silly instructions where like you say, you're walking through a field and it says, walk at this angle across to this sort of like gate, and you're like, well, you can see 3 gates. Which one is it? And
the gate is on the other side of a hill that you can't. It's like, where is it? It could be anywhere.
So I think that's what everyone's really looking forward to next year is to go and meet you and to have like a lead, or someone who knows the route before we do it. Because most of the time we print the routes off the internet. No one knows where we're going, and we just try and muddle through it together. And I don't think there's been a year yet where we haven't kind of slightly gone off route or got lost. And we found our way back, and we've got back in the end. But it's not been smooth. It's always
you
like,
see. Yeah. I really enjoy that. And there are groups where you do that because that's what you go for. But this isn't a group for that. This is a group for like, no, you come along and you just have a chat.
Yeah.
And you get exercise and you get out of your head, or you
get fresh air
in your
and all
head
the rest of it.
tell people what you want to get off your chest. There's a few people who do it and they've had a chat about stuff, and then at the end of it, they're like, oh, that was like a therapy session. So there's all sorts. So yeah. What about you anyway?
Well, I think I was going to say one of the things I've done recently, there's this Mr. friend of the show, Paul Field, Captain Field. He's been inviting me for a while to go. There's a thing called The Dinner, which is once a month nearby me, but it's arranged by Will Polston, who's been on the podcast a couple of times. And it's kind of like a dinner at a really nice like country sort of hotel near Chelmsford. And I think there's probably about 80 or 100, maybe more than that, business owners go to this dinner. And it's every second Wednesday of the month. And he'd been inviting me for ages to go along. And I went last week, actually, for the first time. And it was really, really lovely to get. And it's similar, I suppose, to the walk bath thing in terms of it's a community of people who go to this dinner once a month. And you sit next to someone for dinner. You've probably never met them before, and you just have a talk a bit more with more of a focus on, I suppose, business and what you're doing, and there's other people around a table that can kind of help, and it was really interesting. And there's a guy who runs the hotel that where we hosted it, or where he hosts it, who stands up at the start, and Will stood up and did like only like a 1 minute, like a little 1 minute kind of talk, but really just to get you thinking. And then the owner of the hotel did as well. And he did a little talk, and this actually ties in. It sounds like it's just about business and stuff, but it really ties into training as well. And he talked about there's a bell in they do weddings and things at this hotel, and there's a bell in the garden, which when people get married, they kind of like ring this bell, you know. And he said the bell came out of his dad I presume his dad's probably passed away now, but his dad used to run a pub, and it was the bell that he used to ring and say, you know, time, gentlemen, please. You know, my dad used to run a pub, and it was just a kind of thing that they used to say, you know, time, gentlemen, please ring this thing. And he said that the bell, and it got hit, and he just did a little 1 minute, and he said, and it was thinking about time, and it was thinking about, and you just mentioned, you know, where you place your time, you know, within whatever, and it could be within training, but with what he was saying about was specifically around business. And it's being very careful of where you spend your time, and actually spending your time on the tasks and the things that are going to move you forwards in the most meaningful, impactful way. So from a business point of view, that's got certain connotations and certain things that you may delegate to others, and certain things that you may spend your time on that's actually going to help move the needle and move you forwards. And you mentioned just then about your you know, your list of priorities and tasks for the week that are going to help move you in the right direction, you know, and you don't worry about this. And it just made me think, actually, what you were saying is that time of where are you spending most of your time with training, with lifestyle, with you know, nutrition, with all this stuff. And I know that Dan John has spoke before, or various people have spoke before and said, actually, if you're training, you know, 5 days a week for an hour a time, but your nutrition's all over the place, you're actually better off taking one of those training sessions out and spending that hour maybe planning your meals for the week, or maybe batch cooking, or maybe shopping more, you know, writing a shopping list and do it, you know. So it's just kind of where you're going to get the most value and make the most impact from your time. So for me, I mean, one thing is that I'm going to be going to this dinner every month, and kind of trying to move the business forwards and move this podcast forwards, you know, in a meaningful way. Training is kind of dialed in now, really, because Paul obviously kind of programs for my training, and I'm definitely going to want to do, you know, 2 or 3 strongman comps next year, and everything's moving in the right direction. But for me, it's a lot more now about, yeah, where I'm spending my time. And I've got a couple of new people coming into the gym that are going to help, and they're going to be working with us next year, which is going to be good. So that's kind of where my focus is mainly now. And with the kids being, you know, 8 and 5, and wanting to spend more time with them as well. But everything's kind of moving in the right direction. But I think that's going to be the big focus for me, really, is, you know, probably guarding my time a bit more. And we spoke before, didn't we, with Steve, about saying yes to everything, and actually the power of saying no, you know. So I suppose it's more guarding my time and being more mindful of it, and making sure that I'm spending my time in the most beneficial, impactful way. I suppose is my big thing for 2025.
It's funny what you've just said there. What time is it? How long have we got?
3 o'clock. Yeah.
What you've just said there. So there's a book I've got, which is, I can't remember the name of it. It's by Brian Glazer, I think it's by.
That's your guy, isn't it, Brian Glazer?
What?
Is that your guy Brian Glazer? Is that
No, that's Brian Grasso.
Oh, Brian. Oh, sorry.
He told us about the book, actually. So Brian Glazer is some sort of Hollywood producer. He's like, you
said about the conversations you
had.
Yeah.
It's no agenda conversations, right? So you just said that, right? Going to a business networking thing, right? Isn't going a good business networking thing, in my opinion. Isn't going and trying to get business off everybody. It's just going and having a chat. And then at least they know who you are. I need help with my health and fitness. You talk to James. I need help with this, like the BNI or something like that, right? Yeah. But without being so formal of you need to help me with this and I'll help you with that and what have you. It's like, no, you just have a chat. So I've been doing that loads. I did, I hate business networking things, but that was always because I always thought they were about business. But going along as a representative of Walk Bath, I'm like, I just want people to come on. I just want to let them know that we're going to walk. That's it. That's all I'm there for. There's no agenda to it. It's just awareness, right? And so it's in a hotel just over the way. Actually, it's literally like 2 minutes from my front door. Yeah. And I emailed the guy yesterday because I'm like, can I come and chat to you for 10 minutes? Because I've got a video of what Walk Bath's all about. He already knows what we're about. And I took them out for a walk anyway, but I want him to show him the video, show him the page that it's on, and show him the app. And go, by the way, if any guests come and stay, put them in the app. Or just tell them about the app. They can go in and they can come on a walk. If they're there at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, they can come and see parts of Bath that most tourists will never see. With locals as well. With local people, there you go. And that, I first met him almost a year ago. So it's taken that long, right? Because there was no agenda. But now I'm like, and there's an agenda there, but it's like here's what I can do for you and your guests, because the place is being renovated as well and all of that. So they're putting effort into it and time and money and all that. And I'll go to another place as well. But that's taken a long time for that to foster. And then Ben Morris, friend of the show, we've had on a couple of times. I'm meeting him on Wednesday to talk about some stuff because he's been invited to do a talk at a health and wellness thing, like a festival in Bath. And he said, do you want to do a double act? And I've known him now for, God,
few years,
5 years or something.
5 years. Okay.
Yeah. And we've always said we'll do something together, but like, it's like, yeah, where and when, doesn't matter. It'll happen as long as we keep chatting and all that sort of stuff. So something will happen then, something might come of it, something might not. It doesn't matter because it'll be a nice thing to do. So that's the thing. And like you said, you just sit next to someone and have a chat. And then who knows?
It's nice that I sat next to a guy who runs his own business, but he's got a child who's autistic, and he's starting a charity for parents and families with autistic children, and how they can support each other and sharing experiences and all the rest of it. And he mentioned that he wanted to do to start a podcast with it. So then we talked about, a lot of the things people want to talk about, and I say, oh, we've been doing this podcast for 4 years. We've got 220 odd episodes and the rest of it. And people so it's kind of just talking about, well, how can I help you? And if you go to these things with a view of just, like you say, no agenda, what value can I add? Can I have a good conversation? If I can help someone, fine. And it was just nice. Yes, that's going to become part of my kind of monthly thing that I do now. It's only one evening a month. Like I say, every second Wednesday of every month. It's 2 or 3 hours in the evening, which is quite hard because I don't ever go out in the evening. Usually I'm in bed by about 8 or 9. I'm in bed, so it got to that. But still, I mean, I think we finished up about 9, half 9, so it wasn't like a late one. But
so when this guy asked you about podcasts, did he say, right, here's what you need to do. You need to build yourself a shed in the garden. You need to get loads and loads and loads of superhero stuff and a massive microphone. Bigger than, if you've got a co-host, make sure your microphone's bigger than theirs. Not that I'm jealous or anything, but all of that sort of stuff. Is that what you said?
No. But it's interesting. People want to, it's just, it was good. It was nice. It was very, very nice. So that's good. So, yeah, well, that was nice.
Speaking of which, though, I've got something to tell you very quickly as well. So the guy who's helping me do the app, right?
Yeah.
I spoke to him Monday. So obviously, like he hasn't been on any of the walks or he lives in Bath. He got put onto us by one of the guys who were trained. But we were just talking to each other on WhatsApp. We've had a chat on Zoom to flesh some stuff out. But I was talking to him on WhatsApp, and I basically said to him, on Spider-Man, he's got his mate who's the guy in the chair. I was like, you're the guy in the chair. So we did a video on Saturday. I got everyone to stand there in a big group and shout thank you to the guy in the chair. And I sent it to him and he loved it. So he now thinks he's Spider-Man's mate.
Yeah, excellent. No, well, that was good. And we won't, I mean, that's about an hour we've been talking. And it is, like you say, coming up to Christmas. So we know people are going to be very busy. People are going to have stuff to do. But no, that was interesting. It's really good. And I've just loved, the last year again, talking to so many different people, hearing people's perspectives, hearing people's stories, and just continuing to move ourselves forward. So we will be back next week for episode 226. That will be on the 27th of December. So that's going to be kind of slap bang in the middle of Christmas and New Year. So we'll have another podcast for you there. I hope from us, from Health Oddity, hope you have a really, really lovely, peaceful Christmas. And if you are going to exercise, if you are going to train, I hope you enjoy that over Christmas. Thank you for listening all through 2024. And we will be back next week on the 27th of December, episode 226. Hope you have a lovely Christmas, Mr. Peter Lant.
I will do. Thank you very much. I hope you do too. And I hope everyone listening does. We appreciate you all. And thanks for staying with us. And if you want any ideas for Christmas films to watch, here we are. Very festive.
Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, Rambo, First Blood, Part 1, and It's a Wonderful Life. Brilliant. Oh, excellent. So we will see you next week. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so, especially if you are on Apple Podcasts. Please do go on, leave us a review. We'll read it out online. We'll send you out some merch. Happy Christmas, everybody. And we will see you next week, midway between Christmas and New Year, for episode 226. Until then, happy Christmas and goodbye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.